Everything that has a beginning has an end. We enter this world with nothing, but we believe we could become anything. We tell ourselves we have control, that every choice is ours to make. But what if that's a lie? What if every decision, every thought, and every desire was never truly yours? Wake up. So, today we are diving into the neuroscience of free will, and whether if we ever had a choice at all. So, let's go. Hi there, I'm Libet, a neuroscientist and an author of several neuroscience studies. On this channel I explore how the brain works and decode its mysteries. But most importantly, I like to explore how these facts affect our lives. So, if this sounds like something right up your alley, well, you know what to do. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet asked participants to flex their wrist whenever they felt like it, and all of this while monitoring their brain activity. The results? Well, their brain activity started 35 milliseconds before participants were aware of their intention to move. In other words, your brain pulled the trigger before you knew you had a gun. And now, more modern fMRI studies have pushed this further. Researchers can predict your choice, up to 60% probability, 10 seconds before the actual decision is made. 10 seconds! That's an eternity for your brain. And to further support this idea that your brain decides before you actually do, split brain studies reveal something even more disturbing. Researchers showed the word walk to only one hemisphere of a patient's brain. The patient immediately stood up and started walking. And when asked why, he confidently replied, "Well, I just wanted a Coke." And here's the key. He was 100% convinced of his reasoning, yet his explanation was completely fabricated, because the hemisphere controlling speech never saw the walk command. His brain constructed a perfect lie for an action it didn't consciously initiate. This reveals something fundamental. Even when you're absolutely certain about why you made a choice, that certainty doesn't make your reasoning true, because it could be a lie your brain invented to justify itself. Well, still thinking that you're in control? Well, let's take a look at the past. By that I mean your past. Often it's your childhood calling the shots. Every experience we've had has literally rewired our brain. Neuroscientist Donald Hebb discovered that neurons that fire together wire together. And your past doesn't just influence your choices, it physically structures the neural pathways that generate them. If you grow where conflict meant discussion, your brain wired differently than someone who experienced explosive arguments. When facing conflict today, you're not freely choosing, you're following neural highways carved by past experiences. What feels morally obvious to you varies dramatically across cultures. In individualistic societies, people choose personal success, whereas in collectivistic cultures, they choose group harmony. These don't feel like programming, they feel like truth. But they're just invisible scripts so deep they feel like universal truths. So, quick test. Does eating insects disgust you? And why? Because they're gross? Or because your culture told you so? I find them gross, but yeah, we know now what it means. Your attention is $1 billion battleground. And you're the one being sold. Companies use Daniel Kahneman's research on how our minds work. System 1, which is fast and automatic, and System 2, which is slow but rational. Marketers target System 1 because it decides before System 2 can evaluate. So, for example, let's take a look at supermarkets. They put milk at the back, expensive items at eye level, and impulse purchases at checkout, so that when you're decision fatigued, you just buy them. Every element is engineered to influence your free choice. And social media algorithms learn your psychological profile from millions of data points. They don't show you content you like. They show content designed to keep you engaged by triggering emotional responses. An extreme example of this happened in 2012, where Facebook's algorithm created echo chambers in Myanmar that amplified hatred towards the Rohingya minority. This digital manipulation contributed to real-world violence. Users felt righteous and justified, but their emotions were being systematically amplified by a machine learning system optimized for engagement. So, after all of this, are we just passengers in our own minds? Well, your brain decides before you're conscious, creates fake explanations, follows programmed pathways, and gets manipulated by algorithms. But free will isn't an on or off switch, it's a dial. When you're exhausted, stressed, that dial turns down, but awareness turns it up. Here's the key insight. Learning about those limitations is itself information that can expand your degrees of freedom. Every time you pause to ask, why did I want this? Or what might be influencing me right now? You're exercising a form of freedom most people never access. Because it is not a question of total control, but about controlling the one thing that matters. And that is the choice to choose. And here's the twist that most people miss. In a world where AI is rising fast, understanding your mind is more important than ever. Because if we don't know how our own choices work, how can we hope to stay free in an age of artificial intelligence? The question isn't whether you have complete free will, because you don't. The question is, what will you do with the degrees of freedom that you have?